Good evening. My name is Damita Chatman. I'm with Citizens for Excellent and Elected Leaders. I want to thank everyone that's tuned in tonight through all the social media outlets. First of all, I want to thank the man of this house, Pastor Chris. I call him Pastor Chris for allowing us to come in. Then I want to secondly thank the man of my house, my husband, David Chatman. I want to thank my moderators, Kathy Adams and Pastor J.D. Flint. I want to thank the guests for coming tonight. I want all phones on silent, please. This town hall is to hear from the 3 elected officials that went in, I think this year. Next week, we'll talk about what went on after under the gold dome, but this meeting is just to get to know these young men. I want to thank Senator RaShaun Kemp. I want to thank Senator Jason Esteves. And I want to thank my representative, Robert Dawson, Representative Robert Dawson. My name is Damita Chatman. Let me say this, and I'm going to go. Last year, this time when we came into this place, I had a dear friend that would be here every night when we opened these doors. And he's no longer here. His number was called, and that's Mr. Reggie Tatum. And so Reggie Tatum gave me my orders on his death. He gave me my marching orders. So therefore, I'm going to continue on and I'm going to march them orders until my number be called. So I want to take just a second to just go in silence for my friend, Reggie Tatum. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to the moderators. If you were here for the next hour. So thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome again to the South Fulton Legislative Town Hall. Again, my name is Kathy Adams, and I will serve as one of the moderators for this evening. And I am joined here along with Pastor Joe. I call him Pastor Joe Flint. And together we will co-moderate this evening. Just wanted to say thank you again for, I'm going to say our legislative freshmen for coming out and joining us this evening. So, freshman senator though. No, okay. But we want to hear a little bit more about that as we move along during this evening. But so I want to thank all of the guests, those that are in person and those that are in person joining us on a virtual platform this evening. So a little bit about the housekeeping rules and housekeeping and how we're going to moderate this evening. Each of the representatives will be given 2 minutes, 2 minutes for your opening statement, and share a little bit about whatever it is you want us to know within those 2 minutes. We have a timekeeper who will, at 30 seconds remaining, will give us a hands up or some sort. This is my time over here, so, but you'll have a minute and a half to respond to each of the questions. And then as we bring the evening to close, you'll have 2 minutes to close us out and let us know anything that you want us to know, that you want to leave us with. And so do know that everyone will have the same number of questions. You may not have the same question. And we'll have those in random order. And Pastor Joe and I will, again, we'll take turns, and we will give people some information that they probably haven't heard, want to hear, and would like to put in their pockets as they move forward through the next year and a half, moving into our 2026 legislative session or election year. Let me just say that 2026 is going to be a big year. It's our state and federal races that are coming up. So that's where you will see these names on the ballot again. And they want to share with us this evening the value add that they brought under the Gold Dome to represent the city of South Fulton and South Fulton County. So that includes other municipalities other than the city of South Fulton. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce. I'm going to start on my right, and I'm going to start with, you know what? I'm going to start on my far right. since Representative Robert Dawson, you were the only House Representative member. So I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to come back this way. And if you will, we'll give you 2 minutes to go ahead and give us an opening statement and share with the constituents, the viewers, or whomever, whatever information it is you would like for them to know about.
Sure. So
Right.
the mic isn't working yet. So good evening. I'm Robert Dawson, State House District 65, which is Fulton and Coweta County. Municipality wise, I represent South Fulton, Atlanta, East Point, Union City, Chattahoochee Hills, and Atlanta. My committees that I'm assigned to, and I'm a resident of South Fulton, live right up the street, a couple miles away. My committees are agriculture, which I hope we get to talk a little bit about. We're here tonight also on intragovernmental coordination, which is the committee where all local legislation comes in. So it gives me a great opportunity to really see what's going on at the local, city, county, municipal level throughout the entire state. And I'm also an information and audits, which is just somewhat of a placeholder committee. There's still a lot of placeholder committee, but still a lot of information comes through that. Excited to be here. I like to tell people, of course, I'm a big Democrat. These bags under my eyes are from helping Kamala out, still recovering from that. But I like to amend that and say that I'm a South Fulton Democrat. And I like to tune in to you all. This role of representative is that often my will isn't the will that gets executed. I have to balance out and judge my community and see what my community wants, what the citizens that I represent, what they want, and then I legislate towards that wise. So looking forward to a hearty conversation. Thanks to one and all, and great to be with my senators here. My senator, my colleague, RaShaun Kemp as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, Senator Esteves.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. State Senator Jason Esteves, the proud state senator for Senate District 35. This is my first year representing the city of South Fulton, but I've been in the legislature for a couple terms now. Prior to this year, I represented Northwest Atlanta. Now I represent Southwest Atlanta. I represent parts of the city of Atlanta, the north side of the city of South Fulton, and then Smyrna and Vinings. And I am a lawyer, I'm a small business owner, and have focused a lot of my time on trying to reduce costs for Georgians. As everyone knows, those costs have continued to increase and things are getting a lot more expensive. So I find it important that we find ways to tackle issues around housing, stopping foreign corporations from buying up our single family homes, which is making it more expensive to buy and rent. So I've introduced legislation related to that. I've also introduced legislation to tackle healthcare and the cost and access to healthcare, trying to expand Medicaid, but also focusing in on our seniors. My mom is a senior. She has late stage Alzheimer's, and I've been her caregiver for many years. And for several of those years, she lived with my wife and I and our family in our home. So I've seen how challenging it is to navigate the senior care system and how broken the system is. So I've introduced some bills to make our senior care system easier to navigate, but also a system that supports our seniors and provides them the opportunity to grow old with dignity, with respect, and with people who love them around them. I have also focused my time on public education. I'm a former public school teacher, so strengthening our education system and investing in our schools across the state is incredibly important. And the last thing I'll say is supporting our small businesses. We have to build and create our own wealth in this state, and I want to make sure that the state provides support in that.
Good evening, everyone. Very excited and happy to be here. Thank you to Ms. Chatman and to our host for having us here, and also Pastor for allowing us to be here. I'm trying not to have PTSD because the last time I was here, it was for a pretty contentious debate. But I'm also going to celebrate that I'm sitting here. But very happy to represent the city of South Fulton. I am a resident of the city of South Fulton. Also represent portions of Atlanta, Sandy Springs, all of Fairburn, Union City, Palmetto, and a bit of Chattahoochee Hills. This is my first legislative session under the Go Dome, and very happy to announce that I have a bill that is awaiting the governor's signature, and it is focused on education. It's hopefully going to help address, which I truly believe that it will, our alarmingly low literacy rates in the state of Georgia. 70% of our kids are not reading on grade level. And so we have a major emergency right now as it relates to reading literacy. So my bill aims to address that by ensuring that we're preparing teachers properly to teach kids how to read, and also working with our colleague in the House, Bethany Ballard, who sponsored the Early Literacy Act of 2023 to ensure that we're not teaching kids to read using a failed method called recuing. I am also very passionate about ensuring that we provide more renters with rights and flexibility. And so I did introduce a bill to address that. Hopefully that'll get some attention in the next legislative session, but really just been focused on building relationships down at the Capitol, and just happy to be here with Senator Esteves, as people will not mistake me for him. Which happens a lot down at the Capitol. And he forgot to share a headline, but wait for him to do that. So very excited to be here with me, Representative Dawson. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. Again, my name is Joe Flint, and I'm glad to be here with my my co-moderator, Kathy Adams. This is what we do. So we're excited, and we're going to get right into the question. Of course, this is the question for all of you all, because I think I've heard each of you mention something about education. And so one of the most alarming things that we are facing, again, one is literacy, but the other thing is just the number that Georgia falls when it comes to education on a national level. And so from a legislative point, what is happening, and again, I know that some of you all are brand new to it, but what is happening on a legislative point to ensure that Georgia's education system is really being taken care of? And I just want to add to that, we've had recent issues with the new administration trying to push all of education on the states. And so if in fact that should take place, how can Georgia weather that storm? Matter of fact, if you don't mind, I think I want to start with Senator Esteves, because he's the most senior ranking.
Yeah. Thank you, Pastor. So yes, we have a significant issue with public education in the state. Education generally, 70% of our kids can't read on grade level by the time they reach fourth grade, as my colleague Senator Kemp said. And we have to make sure that we are investing in early literacy. We have to make sure that we are changing the curriculum to match, which we all know works very well, which is phonics. And many of you listening probably think, well, isn't that how they teach reading? That is not how we've been teaching reading for the last 20 years in the state. And we have negatively impacted generations as a result. We have to go back to phonics. And many school districts are doing it. But with the lack of leadership that we have from the governor at the top of the ticket, education has been underinvested and ignored for too long. Literally, the only thing the governor has talked about is giving teachers pay raises during election years. But other than that, we have not paid close attention to what's happening with our children. So we have to center our public education system. We have to invest in our kids by updating the education funding formula. But we also have to make sure that we're holding schools accountable for the money that we're giving them, ensuring that they are doing what they need to do and do right by our children. And that's going to mean having leadership in the legislature, but also having leadership in the governor's office to make sure this happens.
Yeah, I ditto everything that Senator Esteves said. An additional thing is attendance rates. We have a major issue post-COVID with chronic absenteeism. There are many districts where chronic absenteeism is at about 20%. And so we can do all the improvements we want, but if they are not, if students are not there, they're not receiving the education that they need. So we have to do something to address that. So there was a bill passed this year to address that, and there's going to be a study committee later this year to address that issue. In addition to that, something that Senator Esteves led on, something that I campaigned on, was very passionate about, is Georgia. It's one of only 6 states that did not invest in additional funding to educate students that are economically disadvantaged. And for the first year, we invested in that. In our state budget, the 2026 budget, there's about $18 million or $15 million that is invested to give additional funding to schools that have high proportions of students that are economically disadvantaged. So we are on the right path, but we need some clear leadership at the top to ensure that we are totally reinventing the wheel when it comes to our school funding formula, which has not been updated very much since 1985. And that is a huge issue because we are not funding education as we should be in the state of Georgia.
Great topic, education. So I'm not just an individual player at the Capitol. Of course, I'm a member of the team, the House Democratic Caucus, and education learning is one of our top priorities. A few talking points. First, the good news. We were able to get $15 million in the state budget for school districts serving low-income students. So that was a win this year, an additional $15 million in the state budget. I brought a copy of the budget, the $37 billion budget for the state, if anyone wants to look through that. We were also able to secure $12 million to support after-school programming. So another win there. And of course, the school safety bill, which was the #1 priority coming out of the House of Representatives, out of our Speaker of the House, John Burns, after the school shootings and the violence that we're seeing. So a lot of bad things going on, but still a little good news. One bill that I co-sponsored was to change the student counselor ratio from 1 in 450 to 1 250. We got some motion on that. My colleague, Representative Glaze, was the primary sponsor, but I signed on that and whipped it and worked it. And I think we'll go somewhere with that as time progresses in the next session.
Awesome. So what I wanted to do now is talk a little bit about healthcare, because we seem to have, there's some disparities across the state, from corner to corner, all across Georgia. But we have some good news here in the city of, well, in South Fulton County, we just say that. But I want to get some, insight on your position on healthcare, not just here in South County, but what are you doing around the state to ensure that all citizens of Georgia have access to good health care? So I'm going to start with you, Senator Kemp.
Yeah, obviously the great news for South Fulton is the new emergency center that's going to be over in Union City. There is not a full service hospital south of I-20, and we all know that Atlanta traffic, that can be life or death for someone in an emergency situation. So very glad about that. The Democrats in the Senate introduced legislation to expand Medicaid. We have a major failure in this state as relates to the governor's decision not to expand Medicaid in this state. We are just leaving money on the table. Well, sending Georgians money to other states for the fact that we are not accepting the expansion of Medicaid. Not only did Senate Democrats lead on that, it's important for people to know we're 23 out of 56, so we don't have a majority. But this was bipartisan. There were Republicans that signed on to the expansion of Medicaid, and that is something that we absolutely need to do in the state to give access to healthcare to more Georgians, especially in rural communities where you see hospitals closing and you see folks not being able to get prenatal care because of no OBGYNs being in their communities. And it's a direct linkage to the fact that we are not expanding Medicaid in the state and giving people more access to healthcare. And I know Senator Esteves introduced some more bills that would make a big impact if folks in the majority would allow those to get a hearing in this capacity.
Just before you respond, Senator, I'm going to ask gentlemen if you all will look directly into the camera. As a public speaker, we appreciate you looking through the room. But we would ask that you would look directly into the camera as you're giving your answers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, right there.
Right, this, right.
They're right there, yeah. So I think the emergency room in South Fulton County is amazing. But frankly, I'm concerned about the viability, the long-term viability of that facility. And the reason is Georgia has over 500,000 people who are uninsured. And then you also have about 1.5 million people who are under the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. In Georgia, that's called Georgia Access. Many of the 1.5 million people have subsidized tax credits, subsidized credits that pay for the premiums to Georgia Access. Those expire this year. And if you've been paying attention to anything going on in Washington, D.C., you know that they are making cuts. So there's a significant chance that those subsidies, that help that people are receiving, will go away. That means Georgia has the possibility of having another 1 million to 1.5 million people who will not have health care by this time next year. It's a great concern because once you get over 1 million people uninsured in the state, the healthcare system starts to break. So we need the governor to step up. We need the legislator to step up. I introduced a bill that would allow the state to provide those subsidies instead. That was not heard by the Republican leadership in the legislature. And I want to make sure that we address this before it becomes a crisis.
So I'll just quickly about that hospital. And I ditto everything that they've said, but it's very frustrating that you can go to any podunk part of town in Georgia, and there's brand new medical complexes popping up. And then here we have a healthcare deficit here. So I think even taking it to some of these healthcare corporations and forming partnerships with some of the HBCUs like Morehouse School of Medicine, we're out to be more independent and progressive for that. A couple of other healthcare issues that I've been focusing on: HIV/AIDS, which of course is an epidemic in our area. I have a piece of legislation I'm working on to revolutionize treatment for that topic. Also diabetes and kidney care. Last time I was in this room, I'm a vegan vegetarian, but I was eating a lot of sweets. And Ms. Chatman told me, hey, pull back from the table. And I've done that. And, we do need to focus on health and healthy eating. I had a great Easter dinner in the district down in Chattahoochee Hills, a farm to table restaurant. So I think we want to do more of that, better eating habits. Georgia's the #1 state for agriculture. So why do we have these food deserts and not enough produce in our schools and on our dinner table? So a lot of ways we can think out of the box and independently change our health outcomes.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. I want to move towards veterans. You know, I don't know what the number of veterans are in the state of Georgia, but myself and Mr. Chatman, you know, he's a Marine veteran. We won't hold that against him. I'm Army, you know, but we're grateful for the service of all the veterans. But there is still an alarming rate of homeless veterans. And I don't want to just leave it at homeless veterans, but there's an alarming rate of homelessness in and around the metro area, but I'm quite sure across the state. What is it that's being done from a veteran standpoint, but also just from a homeless standpoint under the Gold Dome? Or what do you see or believe needs to be done to assist in these areas?
I can tell you what needs to be done. What needs to be done is that we need to make sure that our veterans and people across the state have access to mental health supports, that they have access to affordable housing, and that they have opportunities to put food on their own table. And that means empowering people and educating folks to get jobs, having strong technical and trade programs that are easy to access and close to where people live. It means making sure that we are reaching out to veterans directly to ensure that they have They know what their housing options are. We need to also build more housing. And then finally, going back to mental health, we have a mental health crisis in the state. We don't have enough providers, which means that it's not easy to get mental health services, even if you have insurance, even if you have veterans VA insurance. It's still hard to get the services that you need. So I would start with those three issues: mental health, housing, and job opportunities. If we tackle those three things, we go a long way. The issue that we have in this state right now is that the leadership in the legislature is more focused on criminalizing homelessness, throwing people who are homeless in jail, which we all know does not help solve the homeless crisis in the state.
Yeah, I really appreciate all that Senator Esteves shared, and just want to reiterate the fact of how important this upcoming election is, because all of the priorities that we should be discussing are not being discussed and addressed down at the Capitol, and it is because Democrats do not have the power to be able to dictate what the agenda is going to be. There is in the Senate, the Lieutenant Governor controls, this is something I learned very quickly, that the Lieutenant Governor controls everything that makes it to the floor of the Senate, and in the House, it is the Speaker. And then ultimately, the governor's agenda this year was tort reform, when we should be addressing things that are impacting everyday Georgians, and that's not happening. So that is why this election is so important. We have a open seat in the governor's race, and the lieutenant governor is going to run for governor. So that means lieutenant governor seat open. We have to win one of these statewide races, and also reduce the majority that they have in the House and the Senate. So that is why this election is critically important at this moment.
Yeah, thanks for that question, and thanks for your service. And I'll admit, it's not an issue that's been a big part of my platform. I'll have to adopt it more. My father's a veteran, and of course, a lot of veterans in the family. But in terms of my platform and the work I've been doing, I think the thing that I can work to contribute to the well-being of veterans would be workforce development. Like, my number one charge, one that's under the Gold Dome, has been to upskill District 65, meaning let's bring everyone into vocational education and career training for the economy that we're in right now, the thriving economy of Georgia. So if we can see the veterans who already have tremendous experience, tremendous skill, if we can see that those skills fine-tuned, and whether it's vocationally, IT, STEM, so that you guys can continue to be productive members of the society.
Thank you. And so, I'd like to ask a little bit about that. And you talk about upskilling and things like that, and teaching trades, but what about the white collar jobs? Are we going to bring more of those to South County? Because right now we're a big box. And when I say big box, I'm not talking about department stores and things like that. I'm talking about big box warehouses, data centers, and those types of things. What are you doing to offset that, to bring some of those white collar career jobs? Because everybody resides here in South County. We're not all blue collar workers, not all veterans are blue collar workers. We had some very professional veterans who are now homeless for whatever reason, or being challenged with mental health. So how are we bringing other jobs other than skilled labor to South County? What are we doing to help that?
Yeah, I think it's a ladder approach. We have to start where we are, use what we got, do what we can, and move up the ladder. So a lot of the lobbyists, a great part of what we do under the Gold Dome is stressful. There's a lot of sharp elbows, big egos, but the great part of what we see is there are all these brilliant people, lobbyists, community activists who come to us with all these great ideas. And I can bear witness that the workforce development lobby is intense, it's productive. So I visited a couple of sites where they're introducing citizens to entry-level positions that have a career path up to a more white-collar, higher earning positions. So in terms of my charge of upskilling the district, I just did a career day at Renaissance Elementary School over here in District 4, right across the street from Langston. And we started right there, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, exposing students to careers in finance, economic development, business. Of course, I'm in cybersecurity. My day job is I'm in cybersecurity, the financial technology space, AI. So we're gonna have to start young, and then we're also gonna have to equip the adult population with the new skill set to take advantage of. You know, the governor likes to say, Georgia's the #1 place to do business. This budget bears witness to our wealth. We need to be a part of that equation.
So I'm a low hanging fruit here. So let me go back just a little bit, and I think Senator Kemp, you mentioned open seats. You know, when we lift and shift and we start moving around and moving for other seats in other races. So Senator Esteves, I know you have a desired interest to run for gubernatorial seat 2026. There will be an impact on the party, and we'll leave a seat vacant. Anyone have what's your take on that? What's your take on that? Because the party we can't get ahead in the House or the Senate if every so many years we vacate our seats. And so is there a strategy there as we move forward to backfill that and to have good candidates in the pipeline to leave the seat in good hands as you move on?
Yes, and thank you so much for that question. And yes, I've filed to run for governor. I am running for governor, and look forward to talking to people about that and listening to various issues that folks have across the state. As it relates to building bench, I think that's incredibly important, which is why I'm working with the Democratic Party to implement the Carter Leadership Institute, which would start a program to help develop leaders from across the state and have a pipeline ready for when people that leave office to go for another office. I think it's great that we have legislators who are looking to lead in this state. If we don't have people step up, we're not going to be able to fill these seats. And there are no seats that are more important in this state than the governor's seat, than the lieutenant governor's seat on down ballot. And whether it's making sure that we take the majority in the House, take the majority in the Senate, it's going to mean we need people to step up. And if we want to fill those seats, that may mean that some folks from a city council or county commission are going to move on as well. And we're going to have folks to fill those seats. So I want to make sure that we have a pipeline of talent ready to fill in the needs that we're going to have. And when I become governor, we will have to appoint many leaders to positions across the state, which means the Democratic Party is going to need an even larger pipeline of leaders ready to serve. So I look forward to developing a much longer bench than we have today.
Thank you so much for that response. Let me kind of chime in with this, staying in the same vein, and not specifically to you, Senator Esteves, but now that you've made that, public announcement, if you will. I guess my question, because all of you all are Democrats, is the party ready for what's about to take place?
I would like to think that the party is ready, but I just want to say, Jason didn't pay me to say this. He might, oh yeah.
Nobody can see behind this table but us.
I've been in this seat just for this year, but Jason has been a great mentor to me in the Senate. And his level of expertise and his ability to work across the aisle are exactly what we need down in the governor's mansion to ensure that the priorities that we listed earlier ensuring that people have access to healthcare, ensuring that people have affordable housing to live in, and investing in communities like ours, we have to have leadership at the top that is willing to make that a priority, but also be able to work across the aisle. We have to be realistic that we're not going to win the governor's race, flip the House and flip the Senate. So we have to be able to work in a bipartisan fashion in order to get things done. And I will say, in terms of your question with the party, I just really hope that we will get it right in terms of the people that we elect in our primaries to represent us and be the candidate on the ticket. That's how we get it right, is ensuring that we get the right people in the right seats to run for these offices, to hopefully also get other folks elected to win seats that are flippable. Senator Brandon Beach's seat is going to be the first seat that is open. He was appointed to be treasurer of the United States. And so that is a seat that we should be going after as Democrats to flip one of their seats so that we have 24 and sort of 23 and then continue that on into next year.
And ditto to everything my colleague said. Look, I want to dispel the notion that the party and whatever that means to people watching at home is ready for anything. The party are the people. We are the party. No one is coming to save us here in the state. We are the ones who have to save ourselves. And we do that by organizing, by working hard, and by getting out the vote. If you've been part of a group project, and I know you have, if you've been part of a group project, you know that things go well when people are carrying their own weight and when they're working together to get something done. It's the same thing here. There is no question whether the people of Georgia are ready to elect a Democrat, not only governor, but also to make sure that we have a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. But we won't get there without the people of this state and the people of the city of South Fulton specifically doing the work to get us there. And I look forward to working with my colleagues up here, working with people in the community to make sure that happens.
Representative Dawson, I think, did you want to reply?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to that topic. Of course, with the Democratic Party nationwide, not just in Georgia, we're going through an existential crisis after losing to Donald Trump. That being said, we have great, bold, brilliant leadership, in the House and the Senate. We just elected Carolyn Hughley as our leader of the minority party, brilliant, experienced, hardworking. Tanya Miller is our chair. And then we have a tenacious whip, Sam Park, all the way down, even the deputy whips. Just some brilliant people for each individual contributors who are really active in different subject matter. So there's an impressive bench. I can say the same for the Senate side in terms of Senator Esteves' shot for governorship. I would say don't underestimate him. There was an article today I read where some very smart political minds are saying that he has, of all the Democrats, the most the clearest path to a victory. He's the most electable. So I'm excited to see this grassroots campaign take off. And I'll add a little intrigue to the topic too. I happen to live in this district. I'll leave it there.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about too, since we're on this topic, it's really support from the party, the DPG. We know that they're restructuring, it's no secret. They will have new leadership, but within 30, 45 days. But I think the party owns some of this candidate recruitment. You got under the gold dome, you got good leadership under the gold dome. What does it take to keep there? And we've got to keep the candidates in the pipeline because we have to be able to flip the seats. Candidate recruitment is important, but the DPG is not putting candidates in that pipeline or getting qualified candidates and putting them in the pipeline. We can't keep winning the seats with people who are not winnable candidates. What's your take on it?
Well, I just mentioned Senator Beach's seat, and I will say, having now experienced what it's like for a seat to become open and seeing the communication that actually occurs, I am encouraged by that. I do believe that the candidate who is strongly considering running is a very strong candidate that the party agrees on, that the Senate Democratic Caucus agrees on. So I think that that is happening. I think, in addition to literally right now as we speak, there is a forum happening in Albany for the next chair of the Democratic Party. And I think that we made the right decision as a party to make that a paid position. It's important for us to have a chair who can go out and raise money and have some accountability. Very thankful for Congresswoman Kim Williams' service, but I think that that was the right decision for her to make, and appreciate her making that decision. And I think we have some great opportunity there with those candidates that are interested in being the chair of this party. But I will say that it's going to take more of that. We need to see more folks, leaning in and saying, hey, let's talk to some folks that may be considering, like, look, maybe this isn't your opportunity now. There will be other opportunities. We see what the cascading effect occurs when people consider running for other offices. So I do think that we are on the right path to help to address some of the issues that I think many folks have seen with the party.
And I'll jump in on this one succinctly. From the perspective of the House of Representatives, we're gaining ground. We now have 80 members, so there's 180 member split. They can't get any constitutional amendments done. Anything that needs a 2/3 vote can't be done without us. We flipped 3 Republican districts this last election and defended 3 more that were really close. And there are some that we can make that game, but I do appreciate your question. You're absolutely right. A big part of what I do is working with the Democratic Party. I spend a lot of hours every week working with the South Fulton Democrats, the Coweta Democrats, the Fulton County Democratic Party. So it means a lot to me, but it's back-breaking work. I'd like to thank you all. You're moderating, of course, to Mrs. Chatman, and everyone here and everyone who's listening for doing the hard work of civic engagement, because that's what it's going to take. It's really, really back-breaking labor and work to get out here and motivate people, an apathetic public. And another point of encouragement for where we can go from here is the fact that, our president is really crashing the economy. So I think in the midterm, we're going to see Democrats get more motivated and people who are in the middle come on over to the left.
Look, I think that our history has shown that Democrats win when we are organized, and making sure that we have a strong party, one that supports candidates up and down the ballot, where Democrats are contesting every seat. That's when we do the best. So we have to make sure we have a strong party. We have to make sure we have strong county parties that are well-resourced. We have to make sure that we have nonprofit organizations that are registering voters and getting out the vote on a nonpartisan basis, but working deep into our communities. We need all of these things happening at the same time, everyone rowing in the same direction. We don't need to be rowing at the same speed, but we need to be rowing in the same direction. And when that happens, we win. When it doesn't happen, when we're rowing in different directions, then we don't do well. So our intention up here is to make sure that we are all rowing in the same direction, that we are all aligned, and that all these organizations are doing what they need to do, and that they're well-resourced. They need the money. We need money on the ground all across this state, doing the work that needs to be done, which ultimately falls back to voters. It's all voter engagement, making sure that we have candidates that connect with voters. It all ties back to voters.
Thank you, guys. So this is kind of a lengthy question. But when we're talking about the party as a whole, there's this misconception, or there's this belief that in order to be Black, you got to be a Democrat, right? there is I don't know if you've all seen this clip, but some time ago, a guy by the name of Bishop Wooten made the statement that in no other realm are you looked at differently because you decided not to be a Democrat and Black. So what are we doing as a party to dispel that myth, but just reach out to the people? Because there's so much focus on, and you know this, I mean, it's an unwritten rule. If you grew up in a Black household, for the most part, you're supposed to be a Democrat. But now we have a generation of youth who could care less about politics. They don't care anything about it. And unfortunately, they are swayed by our president because they feel like he's unbought and unbossed. So how does the Democratic Party move beyond a cultural thing, but to a national scene? And I don't know if I'm asking that the right way, but I think you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I'll get a controversial question, so I don't have a problem diving into it. I definitely hear what you're saying and be able to frame it in 2 minutes. It may be hard, but a couple of things, there's not just that Democratic Party. There's now the Working Family Party. We have Black Voters Matter, all the fraternal organizations, the Divine Nine, that are doing a lot of work that's not just so democratically partisan. And the brand is damaged. You're right. Some of the young people, I'll never forget election night. The general election. I went to my polling place and checked the votes, and I had more votes than Kamala because there are people who are revolting on the Democratic Party. In my precinct, I had more votes than Kamala. And a lot of people are becoming attracted to the Republican Party. I think one thing that we can do, we need a fresh reset. One thing that I've experienced, even having my legacy or attempting to have my legacy be a legacy of bipartisanship, is that there are all these old grudges and all this old political history that I think we need a reset from so that we can be more visionary and more aggressive. And I hope Esteves doesn't touch this one. Let's hear from Kemp.
Okay. Well, yeah, he has, but I think it is important for us to show our community that we are investing in and focusing on issues that matter most to them, and not be swayed and thrown off by some of the tactics that Trump is very good at. He's very good at throwing some of these socially charged issues in there to throw us off. That is now what the state Republican Party is doing with some of these very controversial bills. They do that to take the attention off of the fact that we are not providing healthcare to people in our communities. And we have to encourage people, especially now, we as a party and as elected officials need to be getting people to look at their 401ks. Black men, Black women, look at their 401ks from when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were in office and now Trump in office. They need to see the direct impact that their decisions are having on them. He talks a good game, but really his policies are negatively impacting our communities. So I think we need to do more of focusing on the actual things that are impacting people's lives and communicating that to them and not being swayed by some of these things that they're trying to distract us with, which they're very, very good at. But we need to reown the messaging. I think that's what having strong leadership and strong candidates can do.
And I want to start by apologizing because I have to leave after this question, but I do want to make sure to answer it. I think I agree with my colleagues. We have to offer something different than we've done in the past. One, we have to offer a vision for the future, not just something to vote against. Two, we actually focus on results. We focus too much on process. And because we focus so much on process, we lose sight of what we're actually trying to do. The fact that I live in a city where someone who is born poor has a 96% chance of dying poor is an indictment on our leadership. And we need to acknowledge that and do something different about it, which means actually producing results for people. So I don't blame folks who are going back and forth and saying this party really matters. What I'm trying to do is make sure that we actually focus on the results. And what my colleague, Senator Kemp, talked about, cutting through the noise, focusing in on what really matters. What really matters is getting results for people. So when we talk about healthcare, we got to get results. When we talk about housing, we got to get results. We got to lower costs. When we talk about education, we have to make sure that our babies are reading on grade level. When we're talking about supporting our small business owners, when we talk about Black men and the entrepreneurism that we have in our spirit and the hustle that we have, what are we doing to actually support that so that we can be building our own wealth? The Democratic Party has to start focusing in on results. Results for people. And once we do that, everything else will solve itself. And I'm sorry, but I have to go. No, that's right. Thank you.
We certainly appreciate you coming out and spending some time with us this evening. One of the things I want to touch on, and I'm just going to pivot, it's a hard pivot. I want to talk about the Equal Rights Amendment, because it's about the women too. And the Equal Rights Amendment, Georgia has not been ratified. It's not ratified. There are 38 states that are ratified. And we have been pushing, we've been, the Democratic movement, have been pushing that issue for quite some time and trying to get Georgia ratified. House resolution was introduced this past session, and it's year after year after year, and there are always distractors that are out there. What will it take? Because we have worked across the aisles. We have Republican men, females, women of color, not of color, or all races. And we are just doing what we can to get that House resolution and Senate resolution passed in Georgia to get it ratified. What's your take on the Equal Rights Amendment and equality for women?
Yeah, well, obviously, I agree that it's something that needs to be passed. One thing I am really surprised by, if you look at the Republican caucus in the Senate, there is only one woman in the Republican caucus in the Senate. So with that, I say we need to see more women running for office. And we need to, that needs to be a question to all men in the Republican Party and, you know, all elected officials. I do think, you know, Georgia continues to focus on the wrong things. We just, unfortunately, this year passed a religious freedom bill. There is not a lack of religious freedom in the state of Georgia. That's just an unnecessary bill that gives the ability for people to discriminate and use religion as the scapegoat for that. And so I still argue that, you know, we continue to just focus on the wrong things. And that's why we need better leadership at the state to be able to allow some of these bills to get the attention that they deserve. Unfortunately, some of these bills do not even get hearings. And that's how difficult it is in the minority down at the Capitol. But we can change that by ensuring that we are electing more people aligned to the fact that women should have just the same rights and opportunities as men do.
Yeah, I think it's almost the topic of a town hall. Great question. Hey, I'll say it's one thing, and I'm experiencing in the House of Representatives is there's in the Democratic caucus, there's a brilliant coalition of Black women and white women, or all the women are really aligned and strategic in what they do. I think we need to see that across the community from faith-based institutions, sororities, nonprofit organizations like the Democratic Women. But I think it's a conversation. I don't think I have the answer, but I would love to see a town hall on this issue so that we can figure out who are the people we need to put together to work on that.
Chairman, I cannot let us leave without asking this question because it's been burning in the back of my head. The U.S. is under tariff attack. And how has the tariffs, how has this legislation affected Georgia? Or is it affecting us as of yet?
These tariffs in this trade war is absolutely going to impact the state of Georgia. Georgia is the #1 state in the country for agriculture. That is our biggest business, and it is impacting farmers. It is impacting our ports. I think the Port of Brunswick is like the #1 port for importing vehicles, or exporting one of the two. But all these things have a direct impact on our state, in addition to the fact that it's going to impact every single one of us in this room and watching online. They're going to be paying more for everyday goods. I just was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how strollers are going to be increased by like $200. Many companies are running out of the inventory that they currently have. And so they're going to have to start getting imports in. And if those tariffs continue, it's going to impact the everyday goods that we have in our homes and that we rely on. In addition to that, it's going to impact your livelihoods, your way of living. People are going to begin to cut down on discretionary spending, meaning they're going to stop going to the barbershop or getting their hair done as often as they do, or they're going to stop going out and enjoying drinks or food with friends. And then that's going to have a trickle down impact on waitresses and waiters and barbers and hairdressers. And so this has a direct impact on our state. And unfortunately, our state leadership says, well, hey, they're willing to let Trump do what he is doing and taking a wrecking ball to our economy. And as I shared earlier, all of our 401ks have investment in stocks. That is how we grow our 401ks and our retirement plans. Those are dropping day by day because of the actions of an erratic president that is taking, challenging the Fed and going and trying to do these tariffs. All of these things that Trump is doing is having a direct impact on our everyday lives. And so that's why we need better leadership. And that's why we as Democrats need to make sure we are making our constituents know the negative impact that these decisions are having on our community.
Yes, ditto everything on inflation, all those points on inflation. I think those are well stated. And Senator Kemp and I are both on the Agriculture Committee. We meet for the House and for the Senate, which puts us in a very unique position where we learn so much about the big business of agriculture and forestry, and we're lobbied directly by those people. Yeah, people who are terrified, vegetable farmers, corn farmers, peach farmers from this tariff. And it goes beyond just the tariffs, these DOGE cuts, right? Almost the total amount of HIV governmental funding in Georgia comes from the federal government. If that's cut, what's going to happen to our health outcomes? Same with all these other health initiatives sponsored by the CDC. Just today, Rubio made these cuts at the State Department, and education, right? The education funding. I think what we'll see first here is that we're a wealthy state, $37 billion budget, another $30 billion from the federal government. We have good tax incomes, a healthy surplus. But as we're pinched by this foolishness, and it's really political theater, political footballs, as we're pinched by that, we'll lose our footing as one of the most prosperous states in America. And we'll go back to that COVID era where Georgia almost went broke, right? We really went through some dark days. So very consequential, a lot of consequences to what he's doing. I'll say one thing, for all the bad things you can say about Georgia Republicans, the good thing about Georgia Republicans are that they're one of the first and only to revolt against Trump. I'm from Alabama, and the Republican infrastructure over there, they'll just march headlong over a cliff with him. I think as the state starts to suffer, and if our farmers, our budgets become impacted, I think we'll see Republican leadership joining us in some of the fight against what the president is doing.
Trying to save the battery on this microphone. It keeps turning red. But so we're gonna just kind of take this home just a little bit. But I want to talk about purging of these voter lists. I mean, that's like low hanging fruit, you know, Secretary of State's been talking about that. It impacts us all, regardless of which party we're in. It impacts everyone. It impacts, more so than anything, the voter who thought they were registered, who never voted, or who hasn't voted, or who hasn't changed their address, or who hasn't changed their name in quite some time. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about these actions that the state is taking as we relates to voter purging. I will, continue to, I'm gonna keep beating this. The Secretary of State is a statewide office that is up for election as well. All of these elections are critically important because that's where many of these decisions are made. The state election board, which went very rogue during prior to the presidential election, is appointed by Republican leadership. So that is why these elections are so important. And it's also important where, as my colleague Jason Esteves said, that we have nonprofit organizations that are going out and honestly doing God's work to ensure that people are registered, and not just registered, but updating their registration, because that is the one way that they're going to find a way to be able to purge voters, is to say, well, their address changed or they haven't voted in a long time. So we need to make sure that we are knocking on as many doors as we can, engaging folks when they're out shopping or are going to do things to ensure that their voter registration status is accurate. And that's why I would encourage everybody to go to the Secretary of State's website and check your voter status. It will tell you if you're active or not, because I'm very concerned about the fact that they're going to keep purging folks as long as we have laws and policies on the books that give them the ability to do that.
Gentlemen, let us just say thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us this evening and to keep us informed on what's happening in your respective districts and some of the information that is taking place down under the Gold Dome. Thank you for service, not only to state, but to your communities as a whole. But as we wrap up, I want to give some specific dates here moving forward with elections that are coming up. We have a special primary Public Service Commission special election. That is, the election is June 17, 2025. Advanced voting will take place May 27th through June 13th. And the registration deadline, registration deadline is May 19th. May 19th of this year, not next year. May 19th. This election is this year, June 17th. And we have a special primary, the special primary runoff for that same race, the Public Service Commission, will be July 15th. If we should go into a runoff, it will be July 15th. And the advanced voting will be known as soon as possible, but no later than July 7th through July 11th. And again, the last day to register for this is 5/19. Let me just add that public service commissioners are an extremely important role. So don't just say, oh, it's just a race. No, this is extremely important. As they mentioned about agriculture, this is a very big part of agriculture. Special election we have coming up September 16th, 2025. The early voting for that will be August 25th through September 12th. The registration deadline is 8/18. That is August 18th. Special election runoff, if need, is October 14th, 2025. Again, that registration is 8/18. Municipal General Special Election, Public Service Commissioner, November 4th. This is the general election, November 4th, 2025. Early voting, advanced voting will be October 14th through 31st. And that registration deadline is October 6th. And if need, there is a runoff. December 2nd will be that runoff. And as soon as possible, if there's an early voting or advanced voting, November 24th through 28th. And the deadline is October 6th. Ladies and gentlemen, as residents of Fulton County, you owe it to yourself, your family, your neighbors, to help our elected officials as they work to help us. Accountability is the word of the year. Accountability is the word of the year because there are a lot of people who take none in what we have in government now. Let's be accountable and hold our elected officials accountable as they strive to develop and govern Georgia's largest community, or Georgia's largest county, that of Fulton County. I'm going to allow my wonderful colleague to give our final close.
And so we leave you with this evening. And be an educated and informed voter. Always know who is on your ballot, know what is on your ballot, know when to vote, and know where to vote. And so more so than anything, exercise your right to vote. Don't let a year go past or election go past without casting a ballot. And so with that said, thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening. I'm going to turn this back over to our host for the evening, Ms. Damita Chatman.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming. Senator, I'm throwing it out there. Senator Kemp and Representative Dawson, my representative. Before I go to bring the pastor's closing, let me say I want to thank everyone who came out today. Thank my moderators, Joe and Kathy. But most of all, let me put this out here so we know. I've been getting the calls and I got a text while I was sitting there was I want to run for District 2. I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this publicly now. No decision will be made until God release me. And secondly, if I get that release, I will turn CEEL organization over to one of the board of directors and the moderators will move forward. But until then, I'm going to continue on serving the people as God has given me to do. Keep doing what you're doing. Now for the candidates that have reached out to me, I'm getting your calls, I'm getting your texts, I'm getting it all. But I would not talk to anyone after everybody's qualified. Then no one can say that Damita endorsed me. Integrity is everything. And so we will be doing forums. We're not only going to do forums for the Democrat Party, the Republican Party have reached out. So we will be crossing out, and this is, my organization is nonpartisan. I'm going to stay in the middle and let the people decide what they want. Again, I want to thank you. I'm going to call the pastor up of this house. I want to thank him because he's been so patient. This morning when I got off, I was just, and he said, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I said, I ain't got nothing ready. He said, it's going to be all right. So I want to thank him. And most of all, I want to thank my husband because when he come in, he gets it done. And then my moderator that I talk to, these moderators I talk to every day. Thank you. I know they get tired of me, but I want to thank you. And most of all, thank these elected officials that is serving the people. I know it gets rough. I know it gets hard because you got to deal with Damita Chatman. So I know it gets hard, but thank you guys so much for doing what you're doing. I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Chris.
Amen. I just want to say we're thankful to be partners with Citizens for Excellence and Elected Leadership. Thankful for our elected leaders. And we pray for you regularly in this place. Want you to know that. And then we also pray for the organizations that are involved in the whole public policy process. I'm really moved by the mention of GOTV because I think that's the lowest common denominator for all of us to be involved in. And I want you to know that this church is going to be very involved going forward in getting out the vote and getting people registered to vote. And we've already had contact with the Fulton County office and talking about what that might look like, talking about what it might look like even in events like this, always having a table ready for people to check their registration. We got to leave no stone unturned when it comes to this so that people can feel involved. So again, our doors are always open to you to participate with us in our major thrust, kingdom building, because that's who we are, unapologetically, and that's what we do, and we pray. So I want to pray for you, brothers, if that's okay, before we leave this place. Thankful again for our facilitating moderators. Father, we just thank you so much for today, this time together, and to be able to hear from these that you have said, your word declares in Romans that there's no person in any position except you allow it. You are sovereign God. You're the one who allows people to serve. And then, Father, you give us an admonishment for the Bible that we embrace, for the holy word that we embrace. You admonish us as Christ's followers to pray for those who have the authority over us, that we may lead peaceable lives. And so, Father, with the information that has been shared here this evening, with the hopes that have been shared here this evening, with the aspirations that are shared, we place it all before you. And we pray for RaShaun Kemp. We pray for Robert Dawson. We lift them up before you right now. I pray for their strength. I pray for their families. I pray for them even as they work with other legislators and colleagues going forward throughout the year. We thank you for their leadership in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. God bless you.
Thank you.